When I was very young and I was just starting out playing the guitar, one of the real influences upon me was the late and great Elvis Presley. And it was many years later when ELP was playing in San Francisco, I think it was probably 1970, and we happened to have a day off. So my manager at the time said to me, Greg, you know, rather than stay around the hotel and just sort of do nothing, would you like to go and see Elvis perform? And I said, wow, yeah, because, you know, in England, Elvis never came there to play. So although we'd heard all the records and everything, we'd never had a chance to see him live. So we went over to Lake Tahoe. We went into this casino. And I'll never forget it because it was one of those sort of banqueting, cabaret room, really, I suppose. And it had these semicircular red leather seats with tables in front with two lamps on. I think they call them banquette seats. What struck me as strange was that this room was probably 1,500 or 1,800 seats. And at that time, ELP were playing much bigger places. And I thought, you know, I was kind of afraid of seeing a fake Elvis. No? I thought, you know, they used to do that. They used to put these Tamla Motown acts on the road. And only the name was real. You know, there was nothing else. But anyway, my manager, D. Anthony, he said to me, look, Greg, just sit down and you'll learn something, you know. And so we sat down and everybody finished eating. And after a while, the house lights went down. And they started playing this music from 2001. It's actually called Thus Spake Zarathustra. But I'm sure you know it. It goes, bum, 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 ba bum, 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 bum. You know the one. All of a sudden, behind the curtains, I hear an electric guitar and a snare drum. Bam, bam, bap, bap, bam, bam, bap, bap. And the curtains go back, and there he is, Elvis. He stood there with his back to the audience, and they're shining a spotlight up at him and projecting his shadow onto a screen at the back. Must have been 40 feet high. And it looked just an awesome sight. You know, there he was, the king. And in a flash, he turned around. Going to a party in the county jail. And 3 women just fainted. They fell straight onto the floor. The ushers ran down from the back, you know, to pick them up. And Elvis, he did 30 seconds of Jailhouse Rock. Only 30 seconds. And then he broke into, since my baby left me, ba-bum, I found a new place to dwell. And another woman fainted. Anyway, he did 30 seconds of that. And finally, he broke into, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. And he did 30 seconds of that. He'd been on stage for 2 minutes. And the place looked like a bomb had hit it. There was ladies with makeup running all down their faces. There was cups on the floor. There was husbands arguing with their wives because they were jealous. Because, you know, and I'll never forget, of course, the audience exploded into this tremendous applause. And Elvis walked up to the microphone. He said, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really not worth it. And I thought then, you know, what have you got to do to be worth it? But anyway, in his own inimitable way, Elvis just took the knife and twisted it a little more. He broke into, love me tender, love me too. Of course, everybody just melted. You know? And the show went by very, very quickly. At the end of it all, he did an up-tempo song. I think it was Poke Salad Annie, one of those real up-tempo things. And eventually he ran off the stage and the band kept playing. And eventually they stopped, but they didn't stop in a sort of organized way like bands normally do. You know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This band just fell apart. They literally stopped one at a time, as if there was no sort of rhyme or reason to it. They stopped and the house lights came on, but this time they were fluorescent daylight bulbs, you know, the very bright white lights. And over the PA came this now famous line. I know you know what I'm going to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. And I can only tell you that it felt terrible. You felt really, really empty. 30 seconds before, you'd been looking at the most handsome man in the world, you know, blue black hair, a suntan to die for, pearl white teeth, and the voice of an angel, truly fantastic human being. And then 30 seconds later, you were looking at a refugee camp. You know, it's a complete shambles. And he'd gone, you know, Elvis had left the building. And what was left was just complete devastation. People crying. And anyway, we all made our way outside into the cold light of day. And my manager said, there you go, now you know about Elvis, you know. And of course, I was very, very grateful to have seen this man who'd been this incredible inspiration on my career, my life, really. But at the same time, I felt very depressed because I knew I'd never be that good. It really took me quite a long time to get over it. But, I mean, in the end, you are what you are, and I am what I am, so I just had to kind of accept it and get on with it, you know. It didn't work out too bad in the end, you know. As Elvis said, I'm really not worth it. But I'd like to, you know, look, you've either got to be very brave or very stupid to sing an Elvis song, because you're going to lose, you know. You're never going to sound as good. And I'm certainly not very brave, but I am quite stupid. Where I come from in England, it's a county called Dorset. It's a sort of farming community, really. And they've got a saying down there that says, Dorset born, Dorset bred, strong in the arm, but weak in the head.